What was the Indian Reorganization Act? What was the Indian Reorganization Act? This piece of legislation, passed in 1934, marked a significant change in the relationship between the federal government and American Indian tribes. Known as the Wheeler-Howard Act, it is often seen as the centerpiece of the Indian New Deal. The act aimed to reverse earlier policies that forced assimilation and led to the loss of tribal lands. Instead, it sought to restore tribal self-government and protect Indian lands and resources. Before the Indian Reorganization Act, federal policies focused on breaking up tribal lands through a process called allotment. This caused widespread loss of land and weakened tribal communities. The Indian Reorganization Act put an end to the allotment process and encouraged the consolidation of Indian land holdings. It also provided legal mechanisms for tribes to form their own governments and manage their resources. John Collier, who served as Commissioner of Indian Affairs under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, was a key advocate for this act. Collier believed that American Indian cultures were valuable and should be preserved rather than assimilated into mainstream society. He pushed for policies that allowed tribes to govern themselves and work towards economic self-sufficiency. The Indian Reorganization Act included provisions for tribes to create their own constitutions and bylaws. It also allowed them to establish tribal corporations and access federal loans for economic development. This act empowered tribes to vote on whether to adopt its provisions. If a majority of eligible tribal members voted in favor, the tribe could set up a new form of self-government and regain control over their lands and resources. This approach reflected liberal ideals of individual and collective rights, as well as respect for cultural diversity. Although the Indian Reorganization Act did not solve all the challenges faced by American Indians, it marked a clear departure from previous policies of forced assimilation and land loss. For many, it is an example of how government policy can be reformed to support minority rights and cultural identity. In the context of the New Deal and American liberalism, the Indian Reorganization Act illustrates how reformers sought to use government action to correct past injustices. The Act's focus on self-government and economic development aligns with broader goals of social justice and equitable treatment under the law. The Indian Reorganization Act gave tribes more control over their affairs, reduced the loss of reservation lands, and laid the groundwork for future economic development.